Hi, welcome back to my studio. Today we're looking at number 25 from the Develop Sight Reading Etudes. If you've been following the series, then you know what they're about. They present challenges in terms of interpreting rhythmic structure, and especially in terms of trying to find music. So I'm going to go ahead and play through this one and see if I can find some music in it. And I encourage you to do the same. Wow, what I find when I play these is that I have to be really honest with myself about where my head's at. And, there are moments where I lose concentration a little bit, or where I'm in the moment where I am, but I'm not anticipating where I'm going. I've kind of lost the connection with a line, or, something distracts me. Being honest with yourself about that is basically being honest about whether you've actually learned the rhythms and learned the notes. And that applies to anything that we're trying to learn and prepare for performance. But I find it especially difficult with these because it's difficult to find music in them. You find snatches of music, but the continuity is challenging. And I think they're written that way on purpose, because I'm really an ear player. So whenever I hear something that's it makes sense to me, it's like, oh yeah, I understand that. But these are written to not be that clearly understandable. So do the best you can with them. I have a couple of practice suggestions that I can make. And let's see, there are a couple spots we can look at. First, I'm going to go to the music, because what we have is melodic shapes. There are phrases if you can find them. There are certainly harmonic progression. These are kind of the basics of the music. But as I was just telling one of my students earlier today, you can have all the music in the world in your mind and in your heart, but you can't get it out through the horn if you don't know the fingerings. So if there's anything getting in the way from something as fundamental and mundane as using pushing down the right valve, to making sure that you're maintaining the quality of your sound and playing in tune, all those things are tasks that need to be, to whatever degree possible, become part of how you play the trumpet. Then you can have a little bit more success. You can't do everything at once. So as usual, you get syncopation in these. So I'll look at a couple of spots. In the fourth line, if you have the music to reference, and it's pretty straightforward, you get a 3/4 bar, and it has 16th notes and 16th rests. 1/8 note, 1/8 rest. So, and it's pretty straightforward. Let's see. I'm going to just play up to that spot. So you have a change of dynamic. The reason why I'm pointing this out is you look at that bar, and the way my brain looks at it, I see like, oh, 16th rests and 16th notes. Oh, what does that mean? And this is exactly the point. If you're confused, which is very easy to get confused because you see, if you ever read vocal music, which I do a lot, you see flags on every single note. They're not barred as so much instrumental music is. They're not grouped together. If you have 4/16ths, it's 4/16ths with flags and not barred together as a group of 4 notes that fit into one beat. There's what can really help you with these. This aspect is like, when you see it, can you see where the beats are? When you're playing it, can you keep track of where the groupings of the notes are in terms of, is it a triplet or 16ths or 8th notes? Now that's simple, straightforward subdivision. But if you lose track of that, you lose track of the musical line. And then it's very, very difficult to keep going. It's a little bit like tripping on the stairs. Bad things can happen if you trip on one stair and then you realize that you're going all the way down because you've lost your footing. So this is what I was talking about earlier in terms of mentally. You know, I would be like losing my balance for a fraction of a second. This goes to how well you've learned the rhythms and the pitches, and then your physical ability to play the trumpet. So don't just keep playing this over and over again. Be honest with yourself about the spots that are secure and that you know them, and start to make music with them as much as you can. And then the other spots, you know, work on them. Work on them. Now, in this bar, I would have to say, oh yeah, there's a 16th rest, 2 16 notes, another 16th rest, another 16th rest, then 3 16 notes, and see, that sounds very complicated. It is, because it doesn't make any sense. But if you can see that you have 16th rest, 2 16th notes, and a 16th rest, that means that the first 16th note is, in a sense, a pickup to the and of one beat. So it's da 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 ba ba da 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 da. So the important thing to realize in all these etudes is that you're always looking for anchor points, points where there's a sense of, oh yeah, this is, my feet are here, there's gravity, I know where I am. And usually that's on the strong beats of the bar. Since there's so much syncopation in these things, it makes it quite challenging to keep track of the strong beats of the bar. The other aspect is, and we'll get into this in the next etude, I'm pretty sure, is we'll be keeping track of like, where am I in the bar? So it goes da 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 dee, da dee da 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 dee. Okay, it's a 3/4 bar. Why is that important? Because then I have a 4/4 bar next, and the meter changes, and so my feeling of the meter and the feeling of the grouping of the notes changes. All these etudes are written to kind of irritate or annoy you in this respect, that you lose track of where you are and you lose track of where you're going because you're not staying riding the wave, so to speak. So sometimes this is easy because, you know, I'll give you an example. When you have something that's repetitive, I'm going to go down, let's see, no bar numbers here, so I'm going to start a little bit before the 6th line. No, I'll just start at the 4/4. That's at the end of the 4th line. So I got distracted. I'm going to do it again. I realized I'm not really hearing that. I was concentrating too much on the details. There's one note is a staccato dot. The other notes have accents on them. But I don't have the basic structure yet. It's what the heck is that happening with the pitches? So oftentimes what I'll do is I'll just play through out of time so I can get the shape of the movement of the pitches. taste those pitches, I can tell why I got fooled. Why I stumbled a little bit, because I'm not having that strongly enough in my ear. But when I play it slowly, see, that just sounds wrong. We're going to get into this in the next etude as well, because there are some things that are wrong in that etude. And sometimes it's difficult to tell whether it's a mistake or whether it's written that way on purpose, just to give you a challenge. So I hope you're getting the idea here. I was concentrating on the details, or you might be concentrating on just physically managing the trumpet. For some of you, going above the top of the staff will be physically challenging. And if that's the case, then it's going to be very difficult for you to be paying attention to the rhythm. So you get kind of an overload effect. And the key when you're practicing is recognize when your brain is getting overloaded. And back it up a little bit. Make it simpler. Stop, relax, slow things down sometimes. That's one way to practice. Or in this case, I just tried to find the pathway of the pitch movement as it goes up and down, and recognize the intervals and recognize the notes' relationship to one another in terms of the pitch. And that makes all the difference. Now, I don't know if I'm going to play it any better, but hopefully it'll be a little bit better. Now, one of the big distractions for me is I'm making this video for you guys. So I'm thinking all the time while I'm playing. I shouldn't be doing that. I should be hearing what I want to do with the music, and I'm recognizing all kinds of things like, oh yeah, this is going to give people some problems. I should probably give some suggestions about that. So I'm going to go back and pick up some of the pieces. You heard when I got into the thing with what I call limping triplets. So you're going 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. Now when you have several of those in a row, or any kind of pattern in a row, even if it's a difficult pattern, if it repeats over and over again, your brain pretty soon goes, oh, yeah, I see what that is. And then you just keep doing it. And these books are written to acknowledge that that's a dangerous principle sometimes. You get lulled into this particular feeling of da-da, 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 and then it changes. And one thing that changes here, and this is typical again through the whole book, is you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, a subdivision. You're going back and forth between eighth note, triplet eighth note, 16th note subdivision. And even a couple of 30-second notes thrown in for a little spice. But those subdivision lines they're like conveyor belts that are running parallel with one another, but at different speeds. So you have now, any of you who have been playing for any period of time know this. It's something that I remember being yelled at when I was in band. It's like the band director, who was a mean and nasty guy, by the way, said, does anybody know what subdivision means? It's kind of sarcastically. And of course, we're all afraid to say anything because you didn't want to be wrong. And all it means is feeling all the different rhythmic pulses inside the big beats, and feeling how being able to move from one internal rhythmic pulse, like 16ths or 8th note pulse, into a different rhythmic pulse, like triplets, for example, like stepping from one conveyor belt onto another seamlessly. That's how you might describe that feeling. I'm not sure if that'll work for you, but the point is that subdivision is continuous. And when we get into the next etude, number 26, it gets quite complicated. So I should probably go ahead and work on that one now, because it's going to require a lot more work for most people than this one. One more tip and then I'll let you go. 4 lines from the bottom, there's a 3/8 bar. And we haven't had any 3/8 bars. There's some 3/4, 4/4, even a 5/4, but no 3/8. Now 3/8 feels different, obviously. You have a grouping of 3/8 notes. At that spot, let's see, I'm going to start a little bit ahead of it on the 32nd note figure. So you see, then it goes back and you get in this groove, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And you have to be able to keep that, as it says in all these etudes, 1/8 equals 1/8. That fundamental subdivision carries through. The tempo doesn't change, fortunately. That would make it even more complicated. So the trick here, and the reason why I wanted to play that spot for you, is the 3/8. The way it looks is a little bit deceptive. You have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. So you have 2 eighth note beats, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. But the way it looks on the page, they're kind of squished together. It just doesn't look like it would take that much time. And this is another factor that I run into all the time. I just played the Christmas Eve services this year, and one of the things was printed out with, there was like bars going along looking normal, and then the next bar went all the way across the page and had one triplet take up the whole line that went all the way across the whole page and then back into normal notation. Now, that doesn't make any sense, but it really doesn't make any sense to your mind feeling the time, because what it looks like is totally different than your sense of the time of it. So when you're getting confused, it's important to try and recognize what it is that's confusing you. And oftentimes this will be it. This is especially, any of you who have piano keyboard skills, for example, which I do not, at least not beyond the very minimal ones, will recognize that, when the notes in the top staff and the bottom staff and the treble clef and the bass clef are not lined up with one another rhythmically, it's very difficult to read. Yeah, of course it is. So all of you who are printing music and writing music out there, realize that the way it looks on the page is really important. A former colleague of mine, Tony DiLorenzo, is a great composer, writes some very interesting music and is a fantastic trumpet player, said when he was working in the studio with musicians, playing his music, they played differently depending on whether it was printed out music like from the now defunct Finale, some kind of a music scoring program, or whether it was manuscript written music. The musicians played very differently. And I thought, that's so interesting. We're so influenced by what we're seeing, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. So that's another admonition. Try and get the music inside as much as you can. Hearing the pitches, feeling the rhythms, and then of course getting the mechanics of the fingering, the tonguing, whatever else you need to do in order to play the music, memorized in a sense. You're not going to be required probably to play it from memory, but you should know it well enough that it's familiar, so you're not actually sight reading. Sight reading is simply translating notation that we see on the page to sound and music in our mind, and then our body knows what to do if our ear is connected to our technique. So go work on this. I hope it gives you some stimulation, if nothing else. Enjoy the process. I'll see you later on down the road. Have a great day. Bye-bye.